Chapter 33 of Esther Waters. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. Esther Waters by George Moore. Chapter 33. The crowd shouted. She looked where the others looked, but saw only the burning blue with a white stand marked upon it. It was crowded like the deck of a sinking vessel, and Esther wondered at the excitement, the cause of which was hidden from her. She wandered to the edge of the crowd until she came to a chalk road where horses and mules were tethered. A little higher up she entered the crowd again, and came suddenly upon a switchback railway. Full of laughing and screaming girls, it bumped over a middle hill, and then rose slowly till it reached the last summit. It was shot back again into the midst of its fictitious perils, and this mock voyaging was accomplished to the sound of music from a puppet orchestra. Bells and drums, a fife and a triangle, cymbals clashed mechanically, and a little soldier beat the time. Further on, under a striped awning, were the wooden horses. They were arranged so well that they rocked to and fro, imitating as nearly as possible the action of real horses. Esther watched the riders. A blue skirt looked like a riding habit, and a girl in salmon pink leaned back in her saddle just as if she had been taught how to ride. A girl in a grey jacket encouraged a girl in white who rode a grey horse. But before Esther could make out for certain that the man in the blue Melton jacket was Bill Evans, he had passed out of sight, and she had to wait until his horse came round the second time. At that moment she caught sight of the red poppies in Sarah's hat. The horses began to slacken speed. They went slower and slower, then stopped altogether. The riders began to dismount, and Esther pressed through the bystanders, fearing she would not be able to overtake her friends. "Oh, there you are," said Sarah. "I thought I never should find you again. How hot it is! Were you on in that ride? Let's have another, all three of us, these three horses." Round and round they went, their steeds bobbing nobly up and down to the sounds of fifes, drums, and cymbals. They passed the winning post many times. They had to pass it 5 times, and the horse that stopped nearest it won the prize. A long drawn-out murmur, continuous as the sea, swelled up from the course, a murmur which at last passed into words. "Here they come! Blue wins! The favourites beat!" Esther paid little attention to these cries. She did not understand them. They reached her indistinctly, and soon died away, absorbed in the strident music that accompanied the circling horses. These had now begun to slacken speed. They went slower and slower. Sarah and Bill, who rode side by side, seemed like winning, but at the last moment they glided by the winning post. Esther's steed stopped in time, and she was told to choose a china mug from a great heap. "You've all the luck to-day," said Bill. "Hayfield, who was backed all the winter, broke down a month ago. 2-1 against Flyleaf, 4-1 against Signet Ring, 4-1 against Dewberry, 10-1 against Vanguard. The winner at 50-1 offered. Your husband must have won a little fortune. Never was there such a day for the bookies." Esther said she was very glad, and was undecided which mug she should choose. At last she saw one on which Jack was written in gold letters. They then visited the peep shows, and especially liked St. James's Park, with the Horse Guards out on parade. The Spanish bullfight did not stir them, and Sarah couldn't find a single young man to her taste in the House of Commons. Among the performing birds they liked best a canary that climbed a ladder. Bill was attracted by the American strength testers, and he gave an exhibition of his muscle, to Sarah's very great admiration. They all had some shies at cocoanuts, and passed by J. Bilton's great bowling saloon without visiting it. Once more the air was rent with the cries of "Here they come! Here they come!" Even the accommodation men left their canvas shelters and pressed forward inquiring which had won. A moment after, a score of pigeons floated and flew through the blue air, and then departed in different directions, some making straight for London, others for the blue mysterious evening that had risen about the downs, the sun-baked downs strewn with waste paper, and covered by tipsy men and women, a screaming and disordered animality. "Well, so you come back at last," said William. "The favourite was beaten. I suppose you know that a rank outsider won. But what about this gentleman?" "Met these here ladies on the Illan. Been showing them over the course. No offence, I hope, governor?" William did not answer, and Bill took leave of Sarah in a manner that told Esther that they had arranged to meet again. "Where did you pick up that bloke?" "He came up and spoke to us, and Esther stopped to speak to the parson." "To the parson? What do you mean?" The circumstance was explained, and William asked them what they thought of the racing. "We didn't see no racing," said Sarah. "We was on the 'ill on the wooden 'orses. Esther's 'orse won. She got a mug. Show the mug, Esther." "So you saw no Derby after all?" said William. "Saw no racing," said his neighbour. "Ain't she won the cup?" The joke was lost on the women, who only perceived that they were being laughed at. "Come up here, Esther," said William. "Stand on my box. The 'orses are just going up the course for the preliminary canter. And you, Sarah, take Teddy's place. Teddy, get down, and let the lady up." "Yes, governor. Come up here, ma'am." "And is this the 'orses?" said Sarah. "They do seem small." The ringmen roared. "Not up to those on the 'ill, ma'am," said one. "Not such beautiful goers," said another. There were two or three false starts, and then, looking through a multitude of hats, Esther saw 5 or 6 thin greyhound-looking horses. They passed like shadows, flitted by, and she was sorry for the poor chestnut that trotted in among the crowd. This was the last race. Once more the favourite had been beaten. There were no bets to pay, and the bookmakers began to prepare for departure. It was the poor little clerks who were charged with the luggage. Teddy did not seem as if he would ever reach the top of the hill. With Esther and Sarah on either arm, William struggled with the crowd. It was hard to get through the block of carriages. Everywhere horses waited with their harness on, and Sarah was afraid of being bitten or kicked. A young aristocrat cursed them from the box seat, and the groom blew a blast as the drag rolled away. It was like the instinct of departure which takes a vast herd at a certain moment. The great landscape, half country, half suburb, glinted beneath the rays of a setting sun, and through the white dust and the draught of the warm roads, the brakes and carriages and every crazy vehicle rolled towards London. Orange sellers, tract sellers, thieves, vagrants, gypsies made for their various quarters, roadside inns, outhouses, hayricks, hedges, or the railway station. Down the long hill the vast crowd made its way, humble pedestrians and carriage folk, all together, as far as the cross roads. At the Spread Eagle there would be stoppage for a parting drink. There the bookmakers would change their clothes, and their division would happen in the crowd, half for the railway station, half for the London road. It was there that the traditional sports of the road began. A drag with a band of exquisites, armed with pea-shooters, peppering on costers who were getting angry, and threatening to drive over the leaders. A brake with 2 poles erected, and hanging on a string quite a line of miniature chamber pots. A horse with his forelegs clothed in a pair of ladies' drawers. Naturally unconscious of the garment, the horse stepped along so absurdly that Esther and Sarah thought they'd choke with laughter. At the station William halloed to old John, whom he caught sight of on the platform. He had backed the winner, 40 to 1 about Sultan. It was Ketley who had persuaded him to risk half a sovereign on the horse. Ketley was at the Derby. He had met him on the course, and Ketley had told him a wonderful story about a packet of Turkish Delight. The omen had come right this time, and Journeyman took a back seat. "Say what you like," said William, "it is damned strange, and if anyone did find the way of reading them omens, there would be an end of us bookmakers." He was only half in earnest, but he regretted he had not met Ketley. If he had only had a fiver on the horse, 200 to 5. They met Ketley at Waterloo, and everyone wanted to hear from his own lips the story of the packet of Turkish Delight. So William proposed they should all come up to the King's Head for a drink. The omnibus took them as far as Piccadilly Circus, and there the weight of his satchel tempted William to invite them to dinner, regardless of expense. "Which is the best dinner here?" he asked the commissioner. "The East Room is reckoned the best, sir." The fashion of the shaded candles and the lit tables, and the beauty of an open evening bodice, and the black and white elegance of the young men at dinner took the servants by surprise, and made them feel that they were out of place in such surroundings. Old John looked like picking up a napkin and asking at the nearest table if anything was wanted. Ketley proposed the grill room, but William, who had had a glass more than was good for him, declared that he didn't care a damn, that he could buy up the whole blooming show. The head waiter suggested a private room. It was abruptly declined, and William took up the menu. "Bisque soup, what's that? You ought to know, John." John shook his head. "Riz de veau, that reminds me of when—" William stopped and looked round to see if his former wife was in the room. Finally the head waiter was cautioned to send them up the best dinner in the place. Allusion was made to the dust and heat. Journeyman suggested a sluice, and they inquired their way to the lavatories. Esther and Sarah were away longer than the men, and stood dismayed at the top of the room till William called for them. The other guests seemed a little terrified, and the head waiter, to reassure them, mentioned that it was Derby Day. William had ordered champagne, but it had not proved to any one's taste, except perhaps to Sarah, whom it rendered unduly hilarious. Nor did the delicate food afford much satisfaction. The servants played with it and left it on their plates, and it was not until William ordered up the saddle of mutton and carved it himself that the dinner began to take hold of the company. Esther and Sarah enjoyed the ices, and the men stuck to the cheese, a fine Stilton, which was much appreciated. Coffee no one cared for, and the little glasses of brandy only served to augment the general tipsiness. William hiccuped out an order for a bottle of Jameson 8-year-old, but pipes were not allowed, and cigars were voted tedious. So they adjourned to the bar, where they were free to get as drunk as they pleased. William said, "Now let's hear the blow, the bloody omen that put ye on to Sultan, that blood packet of Turkish Delight." Most extraordinary thing I've ever heard in my life, so ye hear?" said Ketley, staring at William and trying to see him distinctly. William nodded. "How was it? We want to hear all about it. Do hold your tongue, Sarah. I beg pardon. Ketley is going to tell us about the bloody omen. Thought you'd like to hear, old gal." Allusion was made to a little girl coming home from school, and a piece of paper on the pavement, but Ketley could not concentrate his thoughts on the main lines of the story, and it was lost in various dissertations. But the company was none the less pleased with it, and willingly declared that bookmaking was only a game for mugs. Get on a winner at 40 to 1, and you could make as much in one bet as a poor devil of a bookie could in 6 months, fagging from racecourse to racecourse. They drank, argued, and quarrelled, until Esther noticed that Sarah was looking very pale. Old John was quite helpless. Journeyman, who seemed to know what he was doing, very kindly promised to look after him. Ketley assured the commissioner that he was not drunk, and when they got outside Sarah felt obliged to step aside. She came back saying that she felt a little better. They stood on the pavement's edge, a little puzzled by the brilliance of the moonlight, and the three men who followed out of the bar-room were agreed regarding the worthlessness of life. One said, "I don't think much of it. All I live for is beer and women." The phrase caught on William's ear, and he said, "Quite right, old mate," and he held out his hand to Bill Evans. "Beer and women, it always come round to that in the end, but we mustn't let them hear us say it." The men shook hands, and Bill promised to see Sarah safely home. Esther tried to interpose, but William could not be made to understand, and Sarah and Bill drove away together in a hansom. Sarah dozed off immediately on his shoulder, and it was difficult to awaken her when the cab stopped before a house whose respectability took Bill by surprise. End of chapter 33. Read by Lars Rolander.